Hey VC, it's Glenn in South Texas, checking in with another video. Got some bummer news a couple of days ago. Found out that Howard Hesseman passed away. Some of you knew him as a lot of things. What was he, a teacher on, was it Head of the Class? But I knew him best as Dr. Johnny Fever. And I don't know whether Howard Hesseman knew it or not, but he inspired a lot of young kids to become DJs, for better or worse. Him along with, Tim Reed, who was Venus Flytrap, a lot of those guys. Man, I love WKRP in Cincinnati. I can't say enough about it. I think you can still get the DVD box set. Now, the thing that's cool about this is all the music that was in the original show is intact in these here. And when they used to show it on, I think it was on Nick at Night and some other places, they had to take all the music out. It's something that we deal with here on YouTube, right? It's a copyright thing. But you can get this. Shout Factory put this out. I don't know if they're still producing it. You can probably find it on eBay. There's Dr. Johnny Fever right there, played by Howard Hesseman. And what was great about this show, well, aside from it just being a really good show, a well-written, well-acted show, a very funny show, was that it was really hip for the time. And there was some, maybe some questionable humor every now and then, some drug references and things. Hey, man, it was rock and roll. And some of the big guys up in the corporate towers didn't necessarily like it, and when they would do that, and they didn't like the show, and so they would move it around, and try to shake it off. But the following that this show had was amazing, and it lasted a lot longer because of that. The corporate entities that were in control at that time just didn't like it. So if you've never seen WKRP in Cincinnati, it is a fantastic show. In my book, it's one of the best sitcoms ever. It's a really great show. So if you've never checked it out, I recommend it highly. And if you can get the Shout Factory box set, again, it's got all the music, everything that was hip back in the day in the late 70s. And that's really kind of what I wanted to talk about today, was that the radio used to be an interesting place for teenagers. And maybe it still is. I don't know. It doesn't sound very interesting to me these days, especially if you listen to the kind of music I like to listen to, which includes classic rock. Classic rock radio is pretty boring, especially down here in South Texas, in the San Antonio area. I won't comment too much on it, but, things just aren't like they used to be. I'm sure it may be like that in your town, where it's the same 200, 300 songs over and over and over again, and all the life is gone out of it. But the thing that was cool in South Texas and listening to radio in San Antonio was we had this guy back here, Joe Anthony, San Antonio's godfather of rock and roll. He was kind of like our Johnny Fever. He was really nothing like Johnny Fever, but a very cool guy. He would bring bands in, and we got to see a lot of bands that maybe other places in the country weren't hip to just yet. Bands like Moxie. Moxie was huge in our neck of the woods here in South Texas. Now, if you're not familiar, and this is a radio station copy, if you're not familiar with Moxie, you should get acquainted with this band. When bands like Rush and AC/DC and Judas Priest and Triumph, and so many others were just starting to catch fire, these guys were at the forefront of that as well. And this album especially has Tommy Bolin playing on it, along with the fantastic vocal stylings of one Buzz Sherman. And there you go, radio copy. Yeah, you got a mark all over it when it's a radio station copy, evidently. Unless you were one of those jocks that smuggled one home. Anyway, love Moxie. They were a very, they were played, Joe Anthony would play the whole album. I mean, this is back in the day when you can do that. Back in the days of album-oriented rock radio. And it was so much fun and so much fun to listen to. And as a kid growing up and just really starting to tune into rock radio in the mid to late 70s, man, it was just great. It was like, you know, just this huge field of music out there to be discovered. And Moxie was certainly one of the bands that came through San Antonio a lot. And in South Texas, we love our Moxie. I believe Moxie was from Toronto. Buzz Sherman, lead vocalist, he passed away. He was killed in a motorcycle accident, I believe. And it wasn't long after that that a fellow by the name of Mike Renoski, I believe is how you say it, took over vocals for at least one album. I want to say it was called Under the Lights or Hit the Lights. Anyway, that guy went on to become who you know as Mike Reno from Loverboy. Another great band that we heard back in the days of the AOR heyday of FM radio was Legs Diamond. And again, I'm kind of trying to feature some bands that maybe some of you have never heard of before. Legs Diamond came out of Los Angeles, California. And man, these guys were fantastic live. Legs Diamond, they would rock your ass off. Rick Sanford, lead vocals of this band. I recommend you check some of these guys out. As a matter of fact, I think I'll put a few links just to kind of whet your appetite for some of these bands down in the description. So if you've never heard of them, you can kind of check them out and see what I mean. You know, these guys really, to this day, can, if the band got back together with Rick Sanford, who's no longer with the band, if they all got back together, they could probably fill a medium-sized theater, I would think, very easily. These guys are much beloved in South Texas. The first album, Stage Fright, was the single on this one. Rat Race, another great track among so many others. This one was The Monster. This had Woman, Can't You Hear It? Oh, that's awful, but Rick Sanford, he could sing, unlike myself. And this was a great album. A Diamond is a hard rock. That's Rick Sanford up at the top right there. And just a great, great band. And these were their two Mercury albums. From there, they went on to a label called Cream, which I don't know that I've seen many other bands on this label. They put this album out and infamously released a version of You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling, which was not a great showcase for this band. It was kind of like a what were they thinking moment. But this album does contain, and I will put the link in the description, of a song called The Underworld King, which is just killer, and I hope you'll check that out. Love those guys. Love me some Legs Diamond. In the 80s, they reinvented themselves again. Put out on Bail. This is a fantastic album as well that you may never have heard of. The title track, Fugitive, is a great one. Walk Away, really a fantastic, it should have been a hit kind of a song. You know, they were kind of driving for the hit, doing the, you know, the hair metal thing that was going on back then, and really doing it well, man. Legs Diamond, one of those bands, a diamond in the rough, if you will. Check them out. They are really excellent, and of course, sound even better on vinyl rather than digital. Let's see, we also had Garfield. Garfield, an interesting band, actually a man by the name of Garfield, Garfield French. Now, in talking about Joe Anthony, the godfather of rock and roll, he used to play a song off this album as the last cut on the album called A Private Affair. And it's really interesting cut, and again, it shows what album-oriented rock was capable of. You know, you didn't have to just, you know, blast your face off with loud guitars all the time. There was room for some prog and some different experimental things. And just again, down here, if Garfield French decided to do a show in South Texas, folks would show up to see this guy. So check it out. I'll look and see if there is a link to this. I guess I should have done that. That's what we in radio call show prep, which I did very little of before making this video. But if I can find that online, I'll put a link to A Private Affair. It's an interesting cut and a great artist, Garfield French, and this is called Out There Tonight. All right, what else have we got? Lone Star, another one of those bands that a lot of people may not have heard of. Favorite cut on this would be the Bells of Berlin. Bells of Berlin, a great album, Firing on All Six from Lone Star. Used to hear this one a lot growing up. Ballad of Crafty Jack, another great cut off this album. Then, one of the biggest bands, along with Moxie and Legs Diamond in South Texas back in the day, would have been these guys. And if you live down here, you know who I'm going to talk about next, don't you? Budgie. That's right, Budgie. And oddly enough, I don't know why I don't have more of their albums. I love this album, I think, the most. Never Turn Your Back on a Friend. So many great cuts on this album. Bread Fan, which is probably their biggest hit, if you want to call it that. Their most known song. Of course, Metallica did a great version of Bread Fan on their Garage Days Revisited. They do Parents, which is another, it's the last track on this album. And Parents is another great cut that is from Budgie that we used to hear late nights on the radio, and just fantastic, man. What a great band out of Wales. Budgie used to hear just whole sides of albums back in the day, and it was a lot of fun, man. I wouldn't trade it for anything growing up. And Budgie, oddly enough, out of all these bands that I'm showing here, that I never did see live, which is strange because I love me some Budgie. Yesterday and Today. Yes, before it was Y&T, kids, it was Yesterday and Today. And I don't know what that guy was thinking about. Hey, we got a cover shoot. All right, I'll be right there. Wearing my track shorts. I'm coming. Hold on. Well, drummers, you know, man. Anyway, Dave Menichetti. Of course, this became Y&T later on. And a great cut on here to check out is Beautiful Dreamer. There's a lot of good ones on this album, and but Beautiful Dreamer really showcases some great guitar work from Menichetti. Make sure you check this one out, and let's see if I can get this out of here. Find that one on the London label. I wonder if this is one of the last albums. I think this came out mid-70s, maybe 75, 76. And, you know, still on the blue and silver London label. Y&T. Or Yesterday and Today. Also, these guys. How about New Jersey Starz? Okay, they went out with a bang with this one. This was their last album. And Coliseum Rock. This song on here, actually it's two songs that they fade into each other. Coliseum Rock and It's a Riot. Just can't miss hard rock. If you've never heard this, I know Starz did some stuff like Cherry Baby, and they had some more poppier stuff. They did the glam thing, and some of that stuff, Detroit Girls, I think, you know, some great stuff, you know, if you're into that kind of stuff. And I like Sweet. It was kind of like, you know, you can kind of equate it with that. But my gosh, It's a Riot, Coliseum Rock, and It's a Riot. Just monster AOR rock and roll that we used to listen to all the time back in the day here in South Texas. Where are we at? Oh, let's end on a bang here real quick. How about these guys? One of the best sounding bands in concert. One of the heaviest bands you'll ever see. That's Saxon. Power and the Glory. Now, why I bring this album, this is probably my favorite Saxon album. And it gets panned a lot because the sound. So I think somebody said it sounds like it was recorded in a tin can. You know what, though? Back in the day, when you had a $200 Sears stereo, it sounded awesome. So it was kind of one of those deals where I guess the mix was geared to, 14-year-old, 16-year-old boys to listen to on their cheap stereos. And man, it sounds great even to this day. Love this album. Power and the Glory, Redline, Nightmare, This Town Rocks. What a great song. Midas Touch, The Eagle Has Landed. Fantastic stuff from Saxon, and we've got some other Saxon albums here of note. I love this band. Wheels of Steel. I don't know where my copy of Denim and Leather is, but here's Strong Arm of the Law. Awesome stuff from Saxon, and they're still out there on the road. As far as I know, Biff Byford and Saxon, this was one of the last albums I bought before leaving high school and going into to real life, as it were. And I believe this album rocked the nations. It actually has you got an appearance by Elton John on a cut called Party Till You Puke, which isn't all that metal, but still kind of cool. And again, I love Saxon, and what a great cover. You know, that's kind of reminding me of the Convention Center Arena in San Antonio, Texas back in the day, except there was a whole lot more smoke, I think. But man, what a great time to be alive. And I picked this up not long ago, Strong Arm Metal. This is an import from France, I believe. And it's got a lot of their hits on it too. Anyway, wanted to share that with y'all. Just wanted to make note of Howard Hessman passing and Dr. Johnny Fever being a radio guy. Kind of a bummer, but he made it to 81 years old, which kind of freaks me out that he was actually, that Johnny Fever was 81 years old. But I guess we're all getting older now, aren't we? That's gonna do it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm Glenn in South Texas. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.